Afternoon and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, we got another week and more war going on in Gaza. And it comes to the question, and I think it's an important question, do Jews have to fight a war differently than everybody else in the world? I mean, is it a requirement somewhere? Is it written in the Torah? Does it say somewhere that Jews have to fight a war where, there's proportion in their war, where as many Jews die as the enemy dies? Does that have to happen? I got to probably, maybe a little bit of a different take on it than you might have. I don't know if anything has to do with the Torah. I don't know if it has anything to do with any biblical things that were written long ago. I think it has to do with this. We're Jews. Here's the problem. My guess is since about, the Holocaust 70 years ago, where Europe either killed or sat back and watched 60 million Jews be killed. I think that what happened there is there's a little bit of, I don't want to say guilt, because I don't even know that's the right word, but when it comes to a situation where you can see the Jews, the conscience of the world, the Jews, where they can say doing something wrong, aha, look, even you did it. Yeah, we killed 6 million of you, but look, you guys are just as bad as us. You killed people, so you're just as bad. So the European world and the rest of the world wants to see the Jews doing what they call bad. Now, the situation is, though, even with that, though, it's never been this bad before. There's been conflicts in the Middle East since, this 1967, and it's never been this bad. And why? I think I know why. 8 years ago, somewhere around there, the Jews had to go into southern Lebanon. They had to go into southern Lebanon because Hezbollah this time, not Hamas, was causing trouble. They were firing rockets into Israel. The Jews had to go in. The difference back then is that the one thing different was that there was one superpower in the entire world. There was one superpower, the United States of America, where the president and even both houses of Congress agreed, Israel, do what you got to do, take your time, we got your back. Go in and do it. And with that, Israel went in, and with the same issues they have today, the UN, yes, was surrounding the Hezbollah there, so that so the Jews couldn't kill Hezbollah. All the things were still happening, but with America always behind the Jews, who cares what Europe says? Who cares what the Arabs say? It was okay, and that's the way it works. In our country today, with this administration, we are clearly not just looking at things even-handed to the Jews, and there's no difference between Israel and Hamas. We're looking at even leaning toward the Hamas side, and we have been for the past 5 years. And I think when that happens, and when it happens from the top of the country, from the president and the Secretary of State, it happens all over the country. Now we know it's okay to not take the side of Israel. It's okay to say that the Arabs maybe can be right here, and the rest of the world sees it. And I think it's taken on such a different tone now with this administration in the United States of America actively taking the side of the Arabs, actively trying to cause ceasefires when Hamas is in more trouble, saying, the response has to be more proportionate, all these different things like that, and you guys have to have some restraint, you Israelis. I think it makes a big difference. And now the Israelis might be in trouble. There's no one there to tell them. So they have to fight their wars. And by the way, here's another thing I don't understand. Does Israel have some certain kind of missile or rocket that just kills women and children? Because I don't care what channel you're watching. They talk about all the women and children. Right. I mean, they kill women, children, puppies, suckling babies. And for some reason, all the rockets just kill that. And every news report says that. Does Israel have to fight their war differently? Right. Can we not, how does Israel now, without any defender in the world, what does Israel do?
The truth is actually they are killing disproportionate amount of women and children because they're going after targets. Hamas fills up those targets with women and children. Right. The soldiers are all hiding out in tunnels in various different locations. Right. So they're only getting shot. If you want to get one of them, you got to get them one by one by one.
But you know that, and I know that, and the whole world knows that. So why are we still talking? Why is this the biggest story in the world right now?
Right. So I actually happen to think that this is great PR for the Jews.
Ooh. Okay.
How do you like that? Let's take a spin, okay? Whole different look at this.
That's different.
It is not ever going to be acknowledged as such, but this is great PR of the Jews. Like you said, this Holocaust consciousness. Right. Well, I think you're right to look to the past, except I would take it back about 3,000 years.
Well, things were a little different 3,000 years ago, though.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly the same. Let's go back to like way back at the dawn of Judaism, Abraham.
Okay.
Okay, so we have been taught, we are children of Abraham. Everyone knows the Jews are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so on and so forth. There is a Talmudic dictum that says that if you want to recognize a Jew, says this is what a Jew is. Jews have three traits. Rachamanim, they are merciful. Bayishanim, they have a sense of embarrassment. Gomlei chasadim, and they do acts of kindness. And if you find someone that does not exhibit those three traits, they're not Jewish. Because in order to be Jewish, you have to exhibit those three traits. Whether this is a wise way to wage a war, it sounds like it's not. Whether this is something that it would even be considered to be acceptable to go in and fight a war like a war is supposed to be fought, I think everyone would agree. But Jews have a hard time doing it because they have these three innate traits that hamper them from just going out and being ruthless like they need to when you prosecute a war.
I might have to differ from you a little bit because I know we are children of Abraham, but we're also children of Joshua, and we're children of Moses, and we're children of King David. And all I can say is it's in the Torah when we went in and God tells us, don't just wipe out the men, wipe out the men, the women, the children, and there's plenty of examples in the Torah where we do just that.
Absolutely, and especially King David. King David was a warrior, and he took care of business.
He did.
And when he needed to take care of business, he would take care of business, and there were times when he really desecrated even the dead of his opponents to send a message, to make sure that everyone got it crystal clear, like, you don't do this, So he was a real warrior. But nonetheless, Jews, the average Jew, you and I, and the guy that's sitting there about to pull the trigger, this is, I just saw this video, there's a plane is focused on its target, and all of a sudden he says, there's kids there. And then, you hear the thing, okay, move on to your next target,
Right.
Well, a Jew is like that. Those are the traits of a Jew. And when the world sees what's being played out before us, even though everyone's going like, come on, guys, like, play for keeps. Win this thing if you're going to win it. On the other hand, the world is witnessing something of the fact that Jews are different. And they're motivated by these certain innate traits that they cannot get around. And the country does not. Now you might say, well, it's because the country is worried about world opinion. To tell you the truth, if there's any one period of time when world opinion matters little, it's right now. Because have you heard anything from Russia? Anything like critical from Russia? Not a word,
No.
right? Anything from China? Not a word. Who's being critical? Obama?
Yeah.
How much is his word worth in the world today? Is
Yes.
anyone in any other issue listen to him?
Well, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
no one's really listening to him nowadays. Now, what about the Arabs themselves? Are you hearing the Egyptians saying anything?
Well, but I think that's one of the most amazing points. Is now our biggest allies is the Jews' biggest allies are Egypt, Saudi Arabia,
and Jordan. Yeah, right. Right.
And more so than the United States of America.
That's
and
right.
I don't understand that.
So we're living in this upside down world. The fact is, though, if Israel wanted to go in there and just pulverize the place, if there was ever a time that they have less public opinion to worry about, this would seem to be it of all of history. I mean, maybe hopefully there'll be some time in the future when it'll be even better. But this seems to be like a peak moment of little public opinion and little support for Hamas. As a matter of fact,
You don't watch CNN?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I don't either, but it seems that MSNBC and CNN seem to be supporting Hamas pretty well.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they probably say they're not supporting Hamas.
They don't say that. They mean the women and children.
People.
The women and children.
Right. Their narrative is that Gaza has been captured by Hamas, and the poor people are being held against their will. Of course, a few years back they voted
for him.
Yeah, they voted for him, about 80%, I think. And okay, but anyway, be that as it may, I do think that the world is seeing something different. And they're trying desperately to find any evidence of the fact that Israel is as vicious as everyone else, because they're trying to equate the two parties. But, some time ago, there was a family that was living in the West Bank named Fogel. The family was slaughtered on a Friday evening. Some Arabs penetrated their village where they live, and they got into their house, and they killed the family.
Yep.
They killed the mother and the father, a couple of the kids. They also killed an infant in his crib.
Right.
Now, the guy that killed the infant in the crib, this is after he killed the parents already. What was he thinking? Right? What was with him? So that person that is able to do such an act, he has absolutely no shred of mercy.
Correct.
He is totally motivated by his principles, which is, I got to kill them. So he slaughters a baby in the crib. Everyone in the world knows that these people will do that. They would slaughter their own baby in the crib. I mean, if they will kill their own children if the child steps out of line.
Right.
Let a girl come home pregnant,
right,
unmarried. She's done for it. Father will take her out and kill her.
Right. No, true.
And he has to, right? Law and order in the family. So everyone knows what they're all about. Everyone is desperately trying to find evidence that Israel is the same. These people hate these people, but they can't find it because, in essence, Israel isn't the same. And that's why they find it difficult to fight like that. It's a Jewish trait, but ultimately it's a trait that symbolizes who we are and what we are, and that we aspire to an entirely different standard, even to our own detriment.
Well, do you believe then, because that's a very interesting point, that the world really does see the difference between the Jews and the Arabs, even though from everything you see, from the protest march to the comments on the news channels from the President of the United States and the Secretary of State with his sarcastic comment about how the Jews are targeting the missiles, when trying to say that they're not. You believe that these people really do agree that Israel and the Jews are different?
Even the UN guy said they're storing missiles in schools.
Right, he did say that is true.
Right. So when he said that, everyone knows that's a fact now. They're storing missiles in schools.
Does John Kerry know that, though?
Yeah, well...
seriously, does he know that? I'm not saying it's a joke.
Whatever he knows or doesn't know, of course, he knows that, but that doesn't matter to him. But I think people... the average person in the world, whether they will admit it or not, understands, is intuiting that these places deserve to be wiped out. The average people understand that, but some people will protest and they'll defend, but they are desperately trying to find some moral equivalency, but they see day in and day out that there is not a moral equivalency. They know. Even when Israel hits a hospital or hits a school and kills a bunch of people, they know that it's very different. Everyone knows that if Israel wanted to, they could have killed 1 million people by now, had they wanted to.
Absolutely, right.
Right? There's 1.8 million residents of Gaza. Well, at this point, there could be 12 if Israel wanted to.
True.
Right? They just plaster the place. So they have that ability. And they would be done with the problem once and for all.
That's an interesting take on it. Everybody knows. I haven't thought of it that way.
Of course they could.
Just the fact that everybody knows, and in spite of what you see on TV, everybody knows.
Everyone knows this. Now, who do you hear protesting it? So you got a couple of people, like the talking heads, who are desperately attempting to create the moral equivalency. And the truth is, when everyone talks about, these people say they have balanced news coverage.
Right.
So balanced news coverage means that they have to show the two sides as being equal. And I was listening to it, the coverage, and in my mind, it actually was balanced. The only problem is, it's not a balanced issue.
Right.
In my mind, it's a one-sided issue. But they did show the coverage as being balanced. The coverage was balanced. It did not favor Israel over Hamas, but it presented them both as equals. And of course, I know, in my mind, that they're not equals at all. I know that there's a right and there's a wrong here. But even so, the fact that they have to go out of their way and turn themselves into pretzels just to somehow get Israel to be like nearly as bad as Hamas, and they realize they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. What are we talking about? They've been fighting for weeks now, and what do they have, 1,000 casualties, 2,000 casualties? There could have been 2 million casualties. I mean, not 2 million people there. There could have been 1.8 million casualties easily.
Well, is then one of the problems is that the world doesn't accept that there is 100% good and 100% bad anymore, that we can't see good and bad anymore, we can't see good and evil. Everything, there's two sides to every story. There's two sides to, everything yes, this guy killed this guy, he killed a cop, but we have people out rallying for him and everything like that. Is it the same kind of thing? Because maybe the cops are bad in this neighborhood and then the criminals are good. Is that what it's about, or is it just about the Jews?
I think that everybody, the average guy in the street understands that good and evil, and I really think that if public opinion was really, really against Israel right now, you'd see it, you'd hear it. They have marches in Europe. Who's marching in Europe?
Mainly Muslims.
Muslims.
Right, yeah, that's it.
Muslims are marching, and I understand. They're on the short end of the stick. But it's not. You don't see. There are no marches in Cairo, right?
That's true.
There's no marches. Nobody's marching in Cairo. If they do, the government will probably just get them all down.
That's true.
And they won't think twice about it.
Right.
Of course, no one will then mention that. And we all know the number of people killed in Syria.
I was just going to say that, right.
By Assad is like, I don't know, how many, hundreds of thousands.
But we've seen, and maybe you're right, but it seems to be there's more protests and angst and anger against the 1,000 people that have died in Gaza than the hundreds of thousands that have died by the hand of Assad or both sides in Syria.
Right. So I think what it's coming down to is that Israel, number one, prosecutes a war the way Jews do it, the way they have to, because that's just who they are. They can't help but not do it that way. It doesn't matter. It's not about public opinion, and I don't think they should try to win public opinion. I think that they've been getting a lot more belligerent, from what I understand. Heard some people told me some various comments that the Israeli ambassador has been saying on CNN and things like that, and they're pretty much like, they're starting to get in your face, like, come on, you guys are just, being unfair, and you're not realistic and all that. But I really think that they should just drop the whole public opinion thing altogether. Just drop it and say, you know what, whatever you guys think, that's okay with us.
Well, and that's pretty much the way it's going to be anyway. Okay, well then let's take it the next step further. With that out of the way, what's Israel doing?
Yeah, now that's
what are they doing
problem.
And what's their goal? I mean, because again, and if you say don't care about world opinion, I'm sure there's a good group of Israelis who say, okay, well, let's win this darn thing.
Yeah.
And what does win this darn thing mean?
So that is a real problem. That's a real problem, because the only way to really win it is to reoccupy Gaza, exercise complete control over the place for at least a year, during which time you have the ability to find every Hamas guy, look into every building, find every tunnel, find everything, get them out there, get all the missiles out of there, get all the people out who are Hamas supporters, which, by the way, even the Fatah is not, the PLO, they're not against us either, because they stand to gain if you get rid of Hamas.
Right.
So, that would be the way to do it. Of course, in order for Israel to do that, it has to expose lots of soldiers to extreme danger. And who wants to do that? Well, who's got a stomach for that?
Well, you're also going to have the question that comes down. Obviously, Jews who care more about life than any other people on earth, but especially about their own lives. Is there a limit to risking their own lives to save lives of the enemy?
Yeah, well, there's certainly, if they were following halachic parameters, then they would not risk their life to save the enemy's life. But they're not following halachic parameters. They're acting according to their traits, their natural traits.
Okay.
Now, this is an interesting thing. We're sitting here talking. Today is the 8th day of the Hebrew month of Av.
Right.
That means this evening starts the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. The 9th day of the month of Av is a day of tragedy and mourning for the Jewish people. It's always historically going back to biblical times. The spies came back from with their bad report and condemned the Jews to 40 years in the desert.
Right.
On the ninth day of Av, the temples, first and second, were destroyed first by the Babylonians and centuries later by the Romans. All kinds of bad things have befallen the Jewish people throughout history. And here we are moving into this situation. You know, we Jews yearn for a messianic era and world peace and all that. It seems as though, in the meantime, it is outside of our reach. And we are condemned, as it were, to still live in this imperfect world where people hate us and try to hurt us, and everything is not all together in the way it's supposed to be until that time as this messianic era comes. And that's why I think that this Tisha B'Av hits us at a very appropriate time, because we're looking at a situation which is kind of an impossible situation. It's really an impossible situation. What should we do? Go in there and pulverize the place? Go in there and take it over? No, that doesn't seem to be a palatable option. Okay, live with it? Oh, you mean you have to live with missiles showing up every day?
Right.
You know, I just got a phone call from Jerusalem just this morning. Arab driving a tractor, tractor doing some street construction. Just drove over someone maliciously, and then drove his tractor into a bus and flipped the bus. Luckily, there was only 4 people on the bus and no fatalities. You know, what do you do with that? How do you live with that? You know?
But one thing I can say, it is hard to fight a war, and whether the war is in the streets of Israel or in Gaza, when your goal is not to hurt anybody.
Yeah, and I think, however, even if we wanted to hurt people, I don't think it is yet within our grasp to be able to just go in and exercise the type of control that we want to exercise, because we really, sadly, are not there yet. Maybe we're getting there, but I think that's what the 9th day of Av says, that, you know, this is a long journey of the Jewish people.
That's interesting.
We have made progress, but we aren't there yet. We're not in the place where we can, you know, create everlasting peace, and where we aspire to is to create world peace. We're just not there yet.
Is this the continual war with Amalek? Does this count as that? Or?
Yeah, so this is this perpetual war, the perpetual war between certain evil people, and there's a certain element that is evil, and they want to do evil, and they perpetuate that, and that is going to continue to exist. And I don't think that there is any solution. We don't have within our grasp yet the real solution, and that's why it's sad.
Well, except for the biblical solution is we're supposed to destroy Amalek in our time.
The problem is that we don't really know how to identify this biblical Amalek, which really means that we don't really know who's the real evil in the world. And because of all that confusion, we're left with these type of situations. You know, if we felt that everyone in Gaza was Amalek, then we'd go in and plaster them.
Right.
But we don't know. We don't really know for sure, and there's doubt and there's confusion because we live in that era. We're not yet in the end of days, and therefore we live in a Tisha B'Av world, and the Tisha B'Av world is full of pain and suffering for the Jewish people.
So pretty much this is going on and on.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time. Tonight and tomorrow we sit down on low chairs like mourners. Right. And we talk about the fate of the Jewish people and various episodes that have befallen us in the past. And we look around and we read the news and we realize that, you know, we still haven't gotten to the point where it's all fixed.
Right.
We're just not there yet.
Wow.
It's a sad story.
It's a sad story. It's a sad story also for the Israeli soldiers that are dying in this war. And is it going to accomplish any? I mean, in the long run, I don't know. I mean, is it going to accomplish anything different?
And absolutely, I think that, and you would say, what about all these tragedies that have gone throughout Jewish history? 1,000 people killed in this persecution, and 100 people in that one, and then 6 million in the Holocaust, and all this stuff, you know, and the expulsions and all these type of things. And now 60 some odd more casualties, and these poor men who leave behind, widows and children and all that, orphans. It's horrible. It is another episode, and it gives us real reason to sit down and ponder our fate on this Tisha B'Av day that's coming up.
Wow. Interesting perspective. And actually, it's very interesting because I didn't think that's where we're going with it. Very, very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
It's sad state of events, but the only thing we say is there's a passage in the Talmud. The Talmud says, "Where's the Messiah?" So the Talmud answers, Messiah is sitting outside of the gates of Rome, and he is doing and undoing his bandages. Now, what that means is that the Messiah suffers. The Messiah represents the Jewish people, and there's been a lot of suffering, a lot of wounds, and he's got a lot of bandages. But he's right outside the gate of Rome, which means that it really, our attitude in life is he's just there, just about there. Right. And we hope that every single moment, that, every casualty, every tragedy, we hope that this was the last one that does it, and that's, the straw that breaks the camel's back, which lets God usher in the Messianic era, which we're looking forward to.
All right, well, there you go. So that's the real end.
Yeah, that's the end game.
That's the end game right there. Okay, well, that makes sense at least.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that doesn't happen before next week, I guess we will be back here with another episode.
Or we're going to be live from Jerusalem.
One way or another, we'll be back.
Yeah.
All right. See you then.